obviously the big elephant in the room is our long-term control plan. $160 million for a city of our size is a lot of money. We are we're classified as a financial high burden by the EPA. Our affordability index is over the state or the federal index, and the part of the negotiations was in large due to the schedule. The type of projects that were involved in were not really negotiable, but and although we did spare a fair amount of time in the early stages negotiating which projects we were actually going to do, the big negotiation came down to the time frame and how to make it as affordable to the city as possible in the EPA's eyes. The long-term control plan is basically a plan that's prepared by the city and approved by the EPA to bring us into as much compliance as possible with the Clean Water Act. The three phases of our plan, the first phase of our plan is going to be built in three stages. One is going to be a plan improvements to the existing plan as we're sitting here right now. Those include, basic electrical upgrades, which are badly needed, improvements to, our clarifiers, aeration tanks, filtering systems, and so forth, control systems. The second phase of the project and third phase of the project would be the wet weather facility. Basically, the wet weather facility will be built adjacent to the plant. That wet weather facility will only handle the high volume wet weather flow. It will be treated a little bit differently than our standard treatment process because it's a higher rate. So that's that section of our long-term control plan is critical to be able to take some of our larger overflows and treat it before it's discharged into the river. And then, of course, the third phase, which everybody's talking about, is the overflows in Mill Creek Park. We have 13 overflows in Mill Creek Park that we'll be eliminating in our final step to our first phase of our long-term control plan. I would imagine, upon completion of the long-term control plan, to be quite honest with you, our total long-term control plan is in excess of 30-some years. So, I mean, there's a phase two of it. We're not done after we get these three projects done. There's some green infrastructure that the EPA would like to see. There's some storage options that they want to see later down the road. And also keep in mind that debt service continues long after the projects are completed. Yes, I mean our loan, depending upon the loan agreements we reach, those terms of those loans I would anticipate those being over the course of 20-some years. And as as the projects increase, the amount that we'll be borrowing will increase, and that debt service will continue long after the projects are completed. Okay. That's correct, which is how the importance of our construction schedule that was finally approved by the EPA plays a huge part in the affordability of the project. Yeah, you would see, there's, the there's always rate structures, analysis that's performed every 7 years, so regardless of whether under a consent order or not. Right now we're working off some of the surplus funds as far as planning and design goes. The construction loans will begin obviously once our projects begin. We anticipate our first project is our electrical system upgrades, and I anticipate those go into construction within the year. The projects will begin in a year. Okay. Yes, there's multiple projects within the plan itself. There's always things that come up. The plan is inspected periodically, and regulations change. They're very dynamic. Air quality is one factor that comes in. There's this whole separate division of the EPA that deals with air quality, and our incinerator, which are in negotiations now and looking at options to handle that a little differently. There's also just things that come up. We had obviously everybody was aware that we had a chlorine incident earlier in the year, and those types of things are those things happen, and part of our improvements on our plan is to try to keep those types of occurrences to a minimum. Yes, because if there is no option not to do the work. I mean, that isn't, if that was an option, we would obviously take that option. But and the bottom line is you got to continue to provide service to the customers. The people cannot do without sewer service. We also have the needs of the water courses and our environment that we have to make sure that we're responsible with. And like the Mill Creek Park issue, that's obviously they had the big fish kill this summer. overflows in Mill Creek Park have been around since the sewers existed 100 years ago. Nothing has really changed from our standpoint, from our collection system standpoint, that would indicate that we have made matters worse. It's just this has been around for 100 years. It's just it's good news that we're going to address it.
This is now coming to light, kind of.
Well, I think it's I think the fish kill obviously brought it to light, but
right.
the water quality I don't think has changed in Mill Creek Park over the last 100 years. It's always been the way it is, and it's just that now we're seeing a little more attention on it, I guess, than it has been in the past.